We're here with Gil Poznanski, a Creative Technologies Activator at the Melbourne Library Service. So Gil, how did you get into 3D printing?
I got into 3D printing through my previous career, which was I was a filmmaker in Hollywood. I was a cinematographer, and all my friends were prop makers, and I used to go hang out with them when I finished my job.
Yep.
And they had these things called rapid prototypers, which were incredibly futuristic machines that would do all the hard work. I don't know about you, but I can't cut a straight line. And so the idea that I could actually design something and let another machine do it without having to worry about it was incredible. So that was my first introduction. And through hanging around and all the rest of it, I got to see some amazing technology, very much in its infancy. These machines were literally created in the workshops well before MakerBot or any sort of kits were coming around. And they were exploring that to be able to prototype something, especially when it comes to working out a design for film. You really want to get the director to sign off as quickly as possible. So a lot of traditional drawing designs and that sort of stuff, but to be able to give someone something in their hands, directors just like, yep, that's exactly what I want. And they basically, their workflow was a lot slower by doing that. So that's how I began. Kind of had a little bit of a hobby interest in it, but didn't realize that years later, this would be one of the things that I taught the public about in the library services.
So there's some props here on the table. Can you possibly tell us about those?
Yeah, that's no problem. So going back with kind of a passion I have in filmmaking, I wonder sometimes if it was just to be able to go play with all the incredible toys that come out in films. But we have two Daleks from Doctor Who. These were made by a colleague of mine. The one you're holding right now is actually 3D printed, completely 3D printed, and you can see that, based on a movie design from the 60s. And again, this is something that until recently, with the popularity of the show, you wouldn't be able to get a hold of something like that. So he built this from the ground up, very simple. We've also got another one here, which is a little bit of a larger scale. This is from the new show. And what I love about this is that if you saw this sitting on a desk, there's absolutely no way you would think this is 3D printed. There's so much love and preparation, and then also post-production work on it, just making sure that like all the lines and all the rest have come out. To me, this is something that you would go into a high specialty store and spend quite a bit of money on. And again, it's not about the money, it's about the passion involved. It's completely articulated, and you know, this shows you the ability of taking your passions and really making it real with 3D printing, or additive manufacturing, as it's called. So.
Because they were quite light when I picked it up.
Yeah.
It was very, very light. So do you know how much it would cost to actually make one of these, or even that one?
Well, this one, let me just hold it up. You were talking about light. It's completely hollow on the inside.
Okay. Yep.
So so you've got a situation where it's a shell. I think that really the cost is more in time because of the actual manufacturing on the machine itself.
Yep.
But I would be surprised if it wasn't if it was more than $50. You'd probably be looking at a whole bunch of stuff. And so I picked up this little thing here, which I think any science fiction fan would appreciate. This is actually a model of the pulse rifle from Aliens. And this is something that you would not be able to find in a store or anything like that. This is, again, a labor of love. The person who put this together, this is 58 separate prints that have all been put together. And it's kind of really interesting. When I was walking up here, people were just like, can I hold it? Can I hold it? And again, this kind of shows where a lot of this technology is going, at least in the film and television industries, because you can now start modeling this stuff on a computer and then spit this stuff out, put it together, as opposed to before when you'd actually have to have a real firearm and all the rest of it. So, this is a pretty impressive piece. I really, it is really nice to hold and all the rest of it. And I think a lot of people kind of live out their fantasies by being able to create these really unique pieces without having to go to the source materials, which in this case is actually a real life gun, which you wouldn't be able to have access to.
So you work at Melbourne Library Service, so can you tell us how you use 3D printing in your job there?
Sure. So there's two levels at Melbourne Library Services as the Creative Technologies Activator. My job is actually to train and introduce technology to the public. So we run a whole program of 3D printing classes. The first ones we call History of 3D Printing, which actually explains why is this the kind of hot topic that it is, why is everyone interested in it, and we discuss a lot of manufacturing methodology, which is completely thrown out the door when it comes to additive manufacturing, which is what these machines do. We also use it in-house to create specialized answers to some of the things that come up in every day. So two really good examples of that is when the library at the dock opened, there was an agreement with the people who built it not to put anything permanent on the walls, and we needed hooks to hang up a lot of our equipment. So we actually created semi-permanent hooks that actually slot into baffles. And when the architects came in, they were like, "You broke the contract," until we pulled it out, and they were like blown away at the ability that not only were we able to design it, but we were able to manufacture it in-house. We also, just recently, I finished a project where we actually modified a American coin machine for paying for paper prints. 50-cent pieces are not standard in any way, shape or form, and we were actually able to print the mechanism that would accept the 50-cent piece and also make sure that it was error-free when the coin was actually deposited. So those are kind of two little in-house things that we just completed that I'm sure that I'll get many more in the future. So they're two practical ways that we use 3D printing in the library services.
That's excellent. I really think that's interesting that you're applying the technology to those sort of fields. So now I'm going to hand over to Kim, and she's going to have a few questions for you as well.
No problem. Hey, Kim.
Hey. I wanted to ask you about some of the programs that you run, particularly for children. What have been some of the most enjoyable events?
For me, I think definitely with kids, and I love working with children because their imaginations are I never would know where it's going to go. People always ask me, why do you work in a library service with your background and dynamic and all the rest of it? And it's like, I know what I'm going to make because I make it. And I love to see what people will do with this technology once they've got the skills to. And children completely blow me away. So we actually just recently finished a interactive mural where we used 3D printing techniques to be able to animate butterflies, which the kids did a background of a summer field, and these butterflies, using Arduinos and some technology, activate when people come up, they light up and they actually flutter. And that's something like I just was so blown away by what they were able to do, because in their world they've never lived in a world without this technology. To them it's just something new. They're constantly learning, whether it's to walk, whether it's to write, whether it's to use a computer. For these kids, they're never going to live in a world where they don't have access to that, and it's so powerful. So that's definitely one of my big highlights. We love to be able to teach older techniques as well. So while the 3D printing is really popular for the kids, because again, it's a toy machine for them. They can design something up, get it printed out, take it home, show their friends, and we get a lot of people coming back over and over again telling me, my friend built this model, I want to build one too. We also, do a lot of traditional stuff, so soldering, which is something that, when I was a kid, don't do it, you'll get burned kind of thing, we're worried about. But we actually do that with kids from like the age of 5 up, supervised. The little joke I used to have is, as long as no one burns themselves, I'll keep doing it. And we've run that program 20 up something times, and no one gets hurt because of the way it's presented and the confidence the kids have now. Whether even if it was iPhones, I see these kids on iPhones. They have grown up with this technology. They know how to use it far better than I do. I mean, I'm going to be out of a job in about 15 years' time.
Yeah, I'm always astounded by 18-month-old kids just on their parents' iPads, and it's pretty incredible.
The iPhone is very clever because it's about instant feedback. And I think that's why it's also popular with people, and you can see that with children. They press something, they get something else out of it, and in fact we use that a lot in our 3D printing programs. There's a lot of apps for the iPad where people can grab different parts, put it all together, make like a monster or a character, and then be able to spit that STL out. So it's a really kind of a fusion of this really interactive kind of scene that's presented itself, and it's all about skill learning, and that's exactly what it is. All these things, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a 3D printer, whether it's a computer, whether it's actually even sketching it out on paper, is all about practicing those skills to the point where you don't have to think about it on a technical basis, and that's when it becomes art. And that's amazing to see. And again, for me, whether you're an adult or a child, when you get to that point where you start to create and it's coming from a place of who you are and it speaks to you, that's why I love my job.
I wanted to ask finally, is there what are some of the exciting events that you have coming up?
Right, so on the 25th of October, which is 2 weeks away, we're actually running Mini Make Day, which is a program which brings all the maker groups in Melbourne under the roof of Library at the Dark. So it becomes a really incredible meet and greet and kind of show and tell for people who are interested in this sort of stuff and haven't got an avenue to actually take the first step. We kind of provide that. And at the same time, we have workshops that people can enroll themselves into. We have a few keynote speakers, and we also have a children's program, which is really excited again because with my involvement with the youth and children services within the library, we've been able to forge a partnership. And they're actually coming out, and kids can make things like light up cards, flashing cards, wearable animals, so little brooches, all of this sort of stuff that I know that as a kid I would have loved to have learned and then utilized in other areas. It's all there and it's all on offer. So it's going to be an incredible day. So that's definitely one of our flagship offerings at the library. We also offer a lot of maker skills classes. So if you're interested in 3D printing, and you want to understand a little bit more than just pressing the button, we have a 3-class course which allows you then to be able to have access to the printers and get some practical experience without having to spend a whole lot of money and find out maybe this is not what I want, or maybe I need to get a little bit more education before I take the next step. We also offer Arduino, which is microcontroller classes, which is a perfect partnership to 3D printing. So that's the boom in robotics, with people making little homemade robots and all the rest of it. And you know what? We're always open to people coming in and working on their own self-directed programs. So again, that's a really exciting thing for me because I don't know what they're going to come in with, but it's always a challenge. Like, I might not have the whole answer, but I'll definitely have part, or at least a direction to go into. So that's a really beautiful experience, not just for myself, but also for the people who are coming in using the Makerspace.